Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced or cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds me still unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Some pretty dark stuff here with all that bludgeoning and wrath and tears and horrors of the shade and punishment and bloody heads. It sounds like a description of the lines at the Popeyes restaurant when their chicken sandwiches first came out. But all this bludgeoning, wrath, and tears comes from 1875 when William Ernest Henley wrote his poem Invictus while recuperating. He was recuperating from some very extreme and painful surgery caused by his tubercular arthritis. It expresses his thoughts that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit has the ability to overcome adversity. Henley was telling us that there is a power deep within inside us to recover from life's challenges. In a few dozen words, he summarized the essence of resilience. Now, almost everyone here has faced major life challenges, from health or death or family situation or employment or identity or sexual orientation or relationship or domicile conditions or religion or some other type of event. We each have experienced times that it seems it is us against the world, and we find ourselves really needing to do what Frank Sinatra sang about: pick myself up and get back in the race, because we understand we can't let it get us down because this final world keeps spinning around. As much as we may want the world to stop when we are faced with a life challenge so that we can get off for a while, unfortunately, the world doesn't stop. And we need to be resilient to get back into the game. So the word resilience came into use in the early days of metallurgy. It was initially used, actually in the early 1600s, it was used to describe the characteristic of certain metals that when the metal was heated, it may deform, go out of shape, but when it cools, it will recover into its original form. In the early 1800s, it was started to be used to describe the human condition. The ability of a system or institution, or more importantly, a person, to maintain their core purpose, their core identity in the face of dramatically shifting circumstances, changes in the environment around them. In other words, having the reactive skills to be able to recover from a difficult situation. Now, resilience is not some magical quality. Resilience is rooted in a person's own abilities to tap into their physical, mental, and spiritual energy. To be resilient in life requires us to notice, first of all, to notice and to pay attention to what is happening around us and how we are responding to it. It requires us to pay attention to the internal and external resources that are available for us to use, and to be aware of, to consider what options we may have for moving forward. It requires a person to go deep, to connect with their inner being and their inner power. And so that's why I say, and gave the sermon this title, it's a call of one's spirit. It's a call from that deep inner self, that essence of beingness that some people may call a soul, to not stay mentally or physically bent, but to recover, to move back into and return to one's true self, to one's true beingness. The Spirit calls us to tap into a reserve of energy. It calls us to keep a calm mind so that we can clearly think and not jump to conclusions. As Mark Napo wrote in that essay that Tom read, we often need to wait for the fog to clear to decide where to look and what to do. It calls for us to not ignore our feelings, but to name them. Unlike what some people think, resilience is not being stoic, but rather living into and ultimately through our emotional response to life challenges. And it calls us to firmly remember, as we read together in our responsive reading this morning, that we be aware of our pain, but know that we are not that pain. Be aware of our anger at a situation, but know that we are not that anger. To be aware if we have fallen into despair, but know that we are not that despair. To know that we can be hope to ourselves and to others. But being resilient needs to be more than just about recovering from one trial or another trial. Resilience is actually and should be a proactive skill that we can develop. To rebound from an acute or chronic life challenge, and to be better able to face a difficulty that may be coming in our future, which inevitably it will. To be resilient calls for us to dig through the muck of the current situation to discover the resources to be used to recover and then move on. Have you ever walked through a Japanese garden with the koi ponds filled with lotus flowers floating calmly on the water? So beautiful, so serene. But you know that beneath that serene surface, the lotus flower's roots are down in the muck. And that muck is essential for the flowers to fully develop. There's a Buddhist saying, no muck, no lotus, meaning that growth and transformation comes from the muck of life. Getting into the muck of a situation can be painful. But you never know what you will find. You never know what you will find if you shift around and be willing to shift around in that muck. Because buried in that muck might be lessons that are useful to keep in mind going into the future. Working through the mucked up times of our life can almost always reveal to us life's true treasure. The treasure that we are harder and stronger than we can imagine. And rummaging in muck of a rough time can be a time of spiritual growth and transformation, just like the muck of a lily pond can give the lily flower the energy for growth and transformation. But in addition to sort of looking down, so to speak, into the muck of an event, it's also important that we are able to look inward. To effectively use the treasures that we may find in the muck to grow in our resilience, we need to examine ourselves, to look into ourselves, to examine our personal values. What do we stand for? What matters most to us in our life? That gives us the foundational reason to move on, to move through a challenging time, to find the energy to basically pull it together and move on in life, to unbend and come back to our true selves. We also need to look into ourselves to know what psychologists call our personal efficacy. That is, what is the belief in our capacity to accomplish challenging goals? If we're going to be resilient in the face of life challenges, we need to be able to say and to truly believe that we are capable of tackling whatever is thrown at us. And as importantly, or even more importantly, when preparing our mind and our emotions and our body to face challenges, we need to be able to tap into whatever our source of spiritual energy is. The power of spiritual energy is vitally important for resilience. Research has actually shown that spiritual energy, more than physical and mental energy, may be more powerful, a more powerful energy available to us to use for motivation, for perseverance, for healing, and redirecting the mind toward the future. It actually sounds like some other sermon I might do sometime with the power of spiritual energy for better than physical and emotional energy. Now, this spiritual energy I'm talking about is not necessarily religion-focused, though it can be. Some people use their religious belief and their religious practice as a way to tap into their spiritual energy. But what I'm talking about is the power that we hold through our connection to the ultimate reality, whatever we may name it: God, the universe, collective unconscious, the spirit of love or grace. This ultimate reality that keeps us in harmony with our values and our life purpose. And it is accessible to us in whatever way we wish for it to be, through meditation, through prayer, through walks in nature, whatever. It does not have to be in a church, though I highly recommend coming to church to connect with your spiritual energy. Spiritual energy fuels mental and emotional endurance. It fuels the mental and emotional endurance that allows us to be able to persevere through difficult times, that sort of keep on keeping on energy. Spiritual energy gives us the emotional power to be able to maintain our personal integrity during adversity. And it gives us the power to hold on to hope that life can return to some form of normalcy when we are faced with a life challenge. So where does the spiritual energy come from? Well, the spiritual energy, I believe, comes from conscious engagement with our spiritual beliefs and our practices as we deal with life's challenge. The operative word here is conscious connection with our beliefs. Spiritual energy comes from being connected and involved with a supportive spiritual community. Channing Memorial Church. And it comes, and this is what I think is really important, and it comes from being willing to use our life experiences to refine and reshape our beliefs, not holding on to some beliefs that we may have had or formed in college days or even last year, but to use our life today, use what's happening today to refine, to reshape what we believe to be true about the life, the universe, and everything. Resilience at its core is a spiritual path because working through life's challenges opens us up to connecting to the deeper elements of our mind and our being. And it can connect us to that which is greater than us, greater than just this event that's happening now that is challenging or maybe challenging our life. So my wish for all of us, my hope for all of us is that we may find the internal strength to address and win over challenges in our life when they come, and to build the reserve of spiritual strength so that we may face and grow by whatever challenges life throws at us. So be it. Amen.